Good morning and welcome to the Capital Gang. I am Hon Ssemujju, and as Moses of the morning show would say, with a bevy of topics for discussion. Today is radio weather, and I hope you will stay with us on the Capital Gang. I have Honorable Ssemujju in the studio. You're most welcome, Honorable Ibra Ssemujju.
Yes, Oscar, thank you.
Right next to you is Angelo Izama. You're most welcome to Gang once again, Angelo.
Thanks for having me.
I heard you speaking English this week on BBC, and there I was thinking, yes, that's my man.
Yeah, DRC is all over the place.
Yes. And you know, DRC's family blaming Rwanda. There are no two ways about it. BBC's family blaming Rwanda. No two ways about it.
There is a campaign underway. In fact, if you listen to the BBC and the other mostly Western outlets, you would think there's no war in Ukraine, there's no crisis in Gaza.
Yeah.
Trump is not appending this federal government. There's just something happening in Congo.
Yeah. And they seriously at it. I have soon-to-be Professor Yusuf Serunkuma. You're most welcome to Gang once again. Good to see you. Yes, and a guest, Mr. Felix Kaihura Safari. He's a legal man, a lawyer, a scholar, researcher on Great Lakes conflicts with particular interest on DRC and Burundi. Before I get to you first, Felix Kaihura, and Ssemujju said, oh, Kaihura, you must have trouble with that name. But Yusuf has another book, Surrounded: Democracy, Free Markets and Other Entrapments of New Colonialism, in hardcover as well, at a good price of 50,000. I will buy my copy today, and I hope others will buy that as well. Yes. So, let me start with you, Felix Kaihura Safari. DRC, M23, at the beginning of this week, they announced a ceasefire, announced that they're stopping with Goma, and that was it. But by 2 days later, they're moving on, and I think they've captured another town. So what's happening there now?
Well, thank you so much. Good morning, listeners, and good morning, gangsters. Thank you for having me. Maybe, Oscar, something you need to know about the M23 is that certainly someone who has just captured, someone who has previously entered Goma, chased out within a week, you do not expect them to, after retaking it, into 2012, they were in Goma already, and the international community with the MONUSCO requested them, I think they promised them that we are going to sort out your issues. They moved out. That was unconditionally. This time round, it was a ragtag force of about remnants of the CNDP that time. I think that's why you see they are called the M23. March 23rd of 2009. They had an agreement, I think, with DRC government, which was breached. So on that day, they sat down, coming from the other organization led by Laurent Nkunda, then later on Bosco the Terminator and Taganda. They later on became M23 under Sultan Machenga and the bishop who was leading them politically. It was purely not Ebanyamulenge. By the way, it's being unreasonably thought that it's a Banyamulenge organization. It was that time it had the elements who were loyal to Nkunda remaining under Sultan Machenga. But much later, they incorporated, and right now the high-ranking members of the M23, by the way, are not Tutsis. So it's very important we dismiss this whole matter of a Tutsi-led organization rather than M23 is so different from the Tutsis. The Tutsis in North Kivu, then the Tutsis in South Kivu around Mulenje, the ones in Fizi and Minembwe. But currently, the ones fighting, actually, I was shocked. The current mayor, the new appointed leader of Goma, or the governor, is actually a Hutu called Bahati. And his brother, a general, is also a Hutu leading the operations in South Kivu, where they declared that they may not proceed. Obviously, it was foolhardy for anyone to believe that they can actually not proceed after realizing they have now acquired Nanga as their leader. Nanga is not a Mushi, is not a Munyarwanda, is not a Munyamurenje. Therefore, they have now, I think, acquired more. You must appreciate that in Congo, every village has a chiefdom, and this chiefdom has different people who are actually either have their own set of a defense mechanism, whereby not only M23 actually can choose the security of the people around that place. So getting Nanga on board meant that they are getting the other community that is Chinyarwanda speaking on their board. And going forward after Seke, I think they are now moving towards South Kivu. When you look at South Kivu, the Banyarwandas in South Kivu, the Banyamurenges initially were not supporting M23, by the way. And they are not M23 because they believe these are Tutsis and Hutus of North Kivu. They are very different people from the ones around the Fizi and Minembwe. The ones in Fizi and Minembwe don't support M23. I can tell you that there is even a rebel group in that area led by one called Kanoma Makanika. He leads a very different, unique group that is even opposed. And actually those Banyawandas believe that group is Ugandan. They think that it came from around. They don't support it. They are not aligned to the ones that are aligned to the Rwandan thinking, or probably. So that's difference. They won't stop today.
Felix Kaihura Safari, I was going to interrupt you earlier and say we've done a lot of a history on how this conflict, and I was looking for an update. But now the manner in which you have presented has made me allow you to continue. So basically what you seem to be implying is that Rwanda has no hand in this thing.
By the way, maybe you should appreciate, when you look at the history of their coming and going, initially what you have right now, people like Machenga had been earlier on working, I think, with it. Right now, have you seen Machenga talking in the M23 currently?
Who is Machenga?
Machenga, Sultan has been known as the leader of the M23, the military commander. He's not talking for quite some time. Have you seen him anywhere? You are seeing the likes of Wile Ngoma. It's called Machenga. I think that's how they pronounce it. Or Makanga. I don't know.
Just in Uganda and Rwanda.
Yeah. in Uganda we could say Makanga, but you're saying it should be Machenga.
But even in Uganda it can't be Makanga because it's Makenga. My understanding of Uganda can't be Makanga. It's Makenga. Very good. Okay. But even Makenga in their own pronunciation, yes. And Machenga is from Rushuru. Where Rushuru is next to Kanungu. So when you look at the ones like Makanika has no single relationship, even does not support the M23. Down there is, you saw even entering Goma, the only resistance they received was from Burundi. It did not come from others. Why? In South Kivu, which borders Burundi, the Burundis have more interests because they have more rebel groups in Burundi that are based around that same place. And at the same time, even Rwanda itself, their own rebel, the ones they claim the rebels of Rwanda, the FDR, are based in North Kivu. They are not in the south. Going down to south where Bukavu is found, the capital is found of South Kivu. You are going. The only resistance they are going to receive, or they are receiving already, is Burundi forces, which they say Rwanda also supports, I don't know, Red Tabara rebels. You know, Red Tabara rebels are the rebels that want power in Burundi. So they are also engaging the Red Tabara rebels.
Felix,
they are the only resisting kind of people they have. So Rwanda, I don't know, because I'm not a Rwandan.
Yeah, but I think you've also been watching videos. You have been watching videos of interviews with President Kagame. You are answering exactly the same way. Here now, let's go for a yes or no.
Yes.
Do you believe Rwanda is behind the conflict in DRC, as the president of DRC believes?
He can answer like President Kagame. I don't know.
Maybe I can pass it on to. Let me pass that. Let me give it to. Looks like everyone has an answer in their own way. I would request my senior Angelo to do that.
You have answered everything.
No, I wanted to give you why I believe.
As I told you, we know a lot of history because we've been educated on this show by many people. But I let you go on because I looked at the angle you were taking.
President Kagame has openly, President Kagame has openly said he supports M23.
Hey.
But yes, he has said it. But I want you to understand this. He has said he believes in their cause. If someone says I believe in your cause,
he believes in their cause,
then he's supporting you. But yes, he has said he believes in their cause. What I don't know is,
Felix, let me try just a final one. Do you think Rwanda is there or not? You're a legal researcher. Yes or no?
Of course, the Rwandan feeling is that the Banyarwanda is in Rwanda. Are you asking whether, Oscar, whether the Rwandan army is in Congo or not?
The UN says there are 4,000 troops from Rwanda that are executing this war.
No, that one is totally impossible. You can't have the other forces there. And
finally, we've got a no.
Yeah.
So,
if it is support, I know it does. I believe it does. But one of the forces there is
okay, support, but no forces there. Angelo, you are next on microphone. As I said, Abdul.
What is the question? Because it's
Angelo.
Complicated.
Yes.
On the BBC speaking English.
Yes. No, but what I said on the BBC is that obviously Rwanda is there, their interests are there. One thing I like about Paul Kagame is that he can be brutally honest. We've interviewed him in the past. I remember I came to this realization. We had an interview with him around 2004, and Andrew asked him at the time, Andrew Mwenda, asked him, again, there was a lot of furore about a campaign as similar to this one that wanted to claim that there was a counter-genocide, that, during the events in 1994, perhaps even more people from the other side were killed, and that the genocide had been precipitated by the death of President Habyarimana, which was caused allegedly by a missile fired possibly by RPF forces. That was the narrative. So the question was put to him, Oscar, is it true that you shot down Habyarimana's plane? And Kagame responded by saying, look, we were in a war. And in a war, people die. But also, Habyarimana, if he had a chance, he wanted to kill me too. That's the reality of the situation. So I think No. He basically saying that. Basically he's saying that yes, these things do happen. But I have been watching his interviews, and I can say two things about it. One is obviously Rwanda is under extreme pressure. You can see from the demeanor of the president. If you've been covering him, you can just tell, that is, and the pressure is coming from, questions like this: is Rwanda in DRC? And the answer that I took from his interviews is like, yes, he says anywhere where Rwanda's interests are, Rwanda is involved. That's what he said.
But what's happening on the ground right now?
I have a friend who's in Goma right now. One of the stories that was being focused on was the alleged death of hundreds of inmates in a prison, and the mass rape of women who were it's a prison like Luzira had a male wing and a female wing. So actually it turns out it may not even be the case. He says that that when M23 were entering there, male was under heavy gunfire. We all know that the male inmates broke loose, were vandalizing the facility, and they torched the buildings and fled. But the female prison remained locked and fire spread across. So I like to rely on Ugandan sources, a Ugandan source. So he says that one survivor told them that only 7 of the 200 female inmates, some of them with children, survived. So, I mean, you have situations like that are heartbreaking. But in the form of an update, in my sense, so I was told that Bukavu is essentially encircled. There's a summit happening today. My impression is because precisely that the territory that M23 now controls, which is about two times the size of Rwanda, slightly more now, puts them in a strong position to make the kind of demands they have made before. And at the summit today, I think the main issue will be whether or not they can retain that territory and then proceed along some kind of political conversation, which from the Rwandan side would be Congolese focused and not related to some of the problems that Rwanda, Uganda have with and Burundi have with rebel groups that are based there.
Honorable Ssemujju, what's happening?
Ask me the same question.
What's happening in Goma right now? And you're a member of Parliament of Uganda. Can you confirm fully that this time round our hands are clean?
You see, Oscar, the rebels that took over Syria benefited from the war on Gaza because the America was involved. They had bombed the Hezbollah. There was no support going to Bashar al-Assad at the time they did because of the war in the area. And
President Putin has also been busy.
He is also busy with Ukraine. You need to understand, Oscar, there is something that Uganda is not saying. The resurgence of M23 coincided with the construction of roads in Congo, with Uganda expanding its influence of sphere, physically present, fighting ADF. Of course, last time when they went to fight ADF, we ended up being accused of rape, of plundering, and we are now each financial year paying $65 million. The total that will pay is about 325, about 1.2 trillion. So when you speak to the Ugandan soldiers privately, first at that time that M23 was resuming the fighting, I had been told by senior UPDF officers that Rwanda was supporting ADF. That they will not say publicly. So these things that are in Rwanda, in Congo now, you need to understand them from that context. And going back to 1998, when Uganda and Rwanda were fighting inside Congo, they went together, but they started fighting twice, resulting into the death of many UPDF soldiers, around 600. So this time around, and that's why the spokespersons of Kagame and Rwanda You'll hear them, their accusation against Tshisekedi is that he allowed Burundi, he allowed Uganda, but he's not allowing Rwanda. You need to mark that point. He has allowed Burundi to operate there, he has allowed Uganda, he's not allowing us. So this M23, Uganda morally supports them, but they are not the ones who have activated them. They are activated by Rwanda because Rwanda has a interest in in Congo. They usually use the presence of FDR. Uganda and Rwanda share many things in common. We have people here, the war in Luwero ended 39 years ago, but you still have veterans of 12 years. You will see them demanding to be paid. So Rwanda, the 1994 genocide is almost 30 years ago. So you can no longer have the same FDR in Congo. You have other people who may not even have participated in your war in 1994, but they also have legitimate interests like you had when you were in Uganda. So I wanted you to pick it from there, that the reason Uganda is not there because Uganda was already there. The interest of Rwanda was the one that was being threatened by Uganda expanding, because Uganda is operating in North Kivu. It is also expanding, and because of their old behavior. The last time they were there, they came back with gold, with timber. We ended up in the International Court of Justice. We lost the case. Katuni is reminding me, we did a story in Monta. When they are returning, they also returned with women. So this time Rwanda, because it was the only one not allowed to go in. Uganda is already there, so their economic interests were being boosted by construction of a road. And that's why the first area to be captured by M23 was Bunagana, which is at the border with Chisoro, not with the border with Rwanda. So why do you think M23 was more interested in Bunagana, where Uganda is constructing a road, and not the other territories? And then they begin moving. In fact, if it continues this way, I am predicting, if it continues this way, it will take either Uganda to pull out, because they have already said that they were on defensive, they are on forward defensive, defending themselves against who?
ADF.
Which ADF? They are already there fighting it. So you need to understand, that's how we went and started fighting with Rwanda. So both of us are interested in the economy of Eastern DRC. We are both receiving gold that is trafficked through our territory. I have said this and I want to repeat. We now earn about $3 billion from that gold trafficked from, and it is the one stabilizing the shilling in Uganda, not the micro economic policy of Bank of Uganda and Ministry of Finance. Our shilling is a bit stable because
Moses Beruhanga has told you repeatedly that it is not trafficked. It is refined in Uganda. It is good trade.
What they do to it, I don't care. But they cannot sell it themselves directly to the international market. There are sanctions. So we are the ones who are selling on their behalf. And Rwanda is doing the same thing. So therefore, this what people may think it is Rwanda. UPDF now is on forward defensive. You need to know why they are in that posture.
Yusuf. Soon to be professor. What's going on in DRC?
Yes or
no? No, it's not yet on a yes or no. and you know the plight of people are talking. Felix here started with the history and so on, but the suffering. Angela has touched a bit of it there. It must be chaos and people living a miserable life. As you know, these leaders in different offices around the world are planning their thing, according to Hon Ssemujju.
You know, Oscar, there's a very viral clip that is shared on social media, and in that clip, President Paul Kagame makes some interesting confessions. He says Congolese minerals go through Kigali, and they go to the final destinations. And he says when these minerals are going through Kigali, he's unable to stop them, which means he gives them safe passage to continue to their final destinations. And then he says if he dared try to stop them from being trafficked through Kigali, there'd be more accusations of him stealing Congolese resources. This is Paul Kagame telling us.
he leaves himself open to either. I think he wants us to see him as a victim. That he's a victim of big thieves who are stealing Congolese resources, but at the same time are accusing him of doing the same. But then he leaves us open to imagining that, you see, you can't be giving these resources safe passage through your country and you're not accomplice to the theft of these resources. Right? And that's a core component, because the government in Kinshasa has accused many times, I think not just Rwanda, but all of us, Uganda, Kenya, of being interested in stealing Congolese resources. And I think the context that Ssemujju gave us is very important. That this is the single conflict in the African continent where you see all the big players strongly voicing their interess and strongly conflicting against each other. So you have Angola, you have South Africa, you have Mozambique, you have us, you have Rwanda, you have Burundi. All of us are looking at this space called DRC for a stake in their resources, right? So there is a seemingly genuine conversation when the government in Kigali claims they need to stop the anti-Tutsi genocide in Congo, and then Ssemujju said, we have many things in common with Rwanda, but they have FDLR. Uganda has ADF, they have FDLR. So when Uganda wants to enter Congo to steal some resources, they say there's ADF. And when Rwanda wants to enter Congo, they say we have all these wonderful excuses that take us into Congo. So is South Africa, so is Angola. But Oscar, in my book, I write about Congo in one of the sections, and I'm interested in the big pictures of things. There's a guy called Dan Gatler. Dan Gatler is an Israeli diamond magnate. He owns 90% of Congolese diamond mines, maybe 100%. But you need to understand the story, how he earned access to all these major diamond mines.
Or the ownership.
The ownership. So the story is 2002, when the old Kabila was being threatened by forces. So the old Kabila sought alliance from a businessman called Dan Gatler, who promised him so many things, among others including weapons. So this is a private businessman who promises to give a government arms, and he actually delivers on his promise. Now, at the same time, Rwanda was in conflict with the young Kabila, and Dan Gatler promised support, working with the Israeli government. So as we look at this conflict, sucking in Rwanda, Uganda, and all these others, we need to often put in the picture these big thieves who have conscripted all our small men. Museveni is conscripted, Rwanda is conscripted. So the region has a bunch of merchants. They go to Congo, not really to benefit themselves, but to steal for the big ones. You see, so the discussion we have on this conflict is often incomplete when you don't integrate the interests of these big players. In fact, when you look at Congolese media, Dan Gatler is called the God of Congo. He's the God of Congo. You see,
G.O.D.
Yes. Look at a man. He's a private businessman. But this is a man I was thinking, Ssemujju was going to go there when he started with the conflict in Gaza and Syria. This is a man who, for the last 2 decades, has directly had conversation with the president of the U.S. over his alleged corruption in DRC. Like a private businessman being directly sanctioned by successful president of the United States. So George Bush sanctioned him to stop mining, George Bush Jr. And when young Obama came to office, he somehow found a loophole to allow him to continue mining Congolese resources. Joseph Biden had involvement with this man still, so that he continues mining Congolese resources. So our conversation in this conflict is incomplete if we don't see Museveni, Paul Kagame, South Africa, Ramaphosa as middlemen. You see, when somebody is building roads in Congo, he's not building these roads for us, or even for himself. You see? So this conversation is often incomplete, Oscar. And I tend to argue that when you look at our colonial period, we only had a man called King Leopold who had DRC as his own personal estate. We have similar men who are absent in our conversation, men such as Dan Gatler, we need to foreground them because they're the men employing our small men here, PK, Yoweri Museveni, and others.
And Josephine Barra has sent me a message saying today is the first time so far Ssemujju has not said the name Museveni. But it is early days.
Maybe he started here in Capital Ganga late.
He didn't hear. Okay. and as I told you, Honorable Ssemujju, Moses Biaruhanga has always saying the gold Uganda is refining is mainly coming from Tanzania, Ghana, Mozambique, and Burkina Faso. Uganda, jointly with DRC, worked on the roads in eastern DRC to promote trade. In 2024, Uganda exported to DRC goods worth $400 million, and that trade is growing. So, Abdul, you do you know if there are troops, as Ssemujju has said? Felix here told us that
Uganda is there officially.
No, Rwanda troops. And the president, as you were saying, for him, he doesn't know. For you, do you know?
Maybe I don't want to use the word, but I think they do. And there is no contradiction about this.
You think they do?
Yeah, they do. You see, first of all, you need to have watched the footage of the summit in Nairobi. The anger with which President Kagame was speaking actually never referred to President Tshisekedi as President Tshisekedi. We're just saying this Tshisekedi. And all this is not about the TUS movement and so on. It's about real direct interest. Does Uganda have interest in Congo? Yes, it does. What interest? Business. Does Rwanda have interest in Congo? Yes, it does. What business? Two. Both the Rwandan-speaking people in Congo, but also business. Does South Africa have interest in Congo? Yes. What interest? Business. Does Angola have interest? Yes. What interest? Business. Does the Western world, Dr. Serunkuma is talking about, have interest? Yes. What interest? Business. Is there a power vacuum in Eastern Congo? Yes, because Kinshasa is weak. Actually, there is literally no government in Eastern Congo. You have just, smaller territories controlled by different warlords, and everybody going in there is all about wealth. The only country which has more than wealthy interests is Rwanda. Rwanda has both too. But publicly, they'll talk about the other interests because it seems to be legitimate. And actually, it is true. However, they don't talk, none of them will talk about the wealth. And the wars all over the world are fought for two reasons: power and wealth. Now there is no power in that place. Every territory is controlled by a different group and a small airfield where some aircrafts come in, pick what they can and fly out. Then you've got us who have no capacity to put an airfield there, but we can create some road. Then M23 says, no, this road maybe it could be more useful for us, capture that territory such that in case people want to access near Bunagana, then it has to be. It's just utter confusion, a cocktail of confusion. But all, it's like this village story when two guys, committing adultery, come and start fighting in a man's bedroom because of a woman. That's what is there in Congo. So you can have the researchers, this is like this is the history. We've gone through that. We all know, and the whole world knows. But Oscar, in this era, there is no way you have troops moving across the border without the world knowing. It's not possible. It's certainly not possible. So I don't think it's being clever but not full when somebody says that, they were not there, really. Everybody knows it's there. So, but will they accept that they are there? Maybe not. Why? Because of the international pressures. Will come in, and the big boys who are also coming in also have the same problem. And Congo is really suffered. It's going to continue suffering like that for a long time until those minerals are exhausted. Then you'll have a honest conversation. As long as those minerals are still as they are, you not have a honest conversation. And now you have a little bit of a big political problem, because you are pitting now East African community against SADC. And the SADC may have a consolidated interest in the countries of SADC, but those of East Africans don't. I don't think Kampala and Kigali will sit and say, how do we go and loot? Or how do we protect our interests? It will be very difficult. But I see Pretoria talking to Rwanda, not Rwanda, to Rwanda, and say, how do we handle this? Angola, how do we handle this? And then, or to Harare, Zimbabwe, say, how do we handle this? And they can come with a unified position. So, in all this, what will happen? Poor women who are in prisons, dying of acid, because the ordinary Congolese people, they are two big elephants fighting on the grass, are the ordinary people in that place. They are dying, and nobody wants that place to develop. They want it as it is now, because that's the only way they can continue, extracting. And maybe nobody wants even a strong Kinshasa government. They're not going to help that Kinshasa government to have control over its territory. They will not do that. They would rather it is. And I mean, that's how Africa was colonized. For those Serunkumazia who have read the history of this world, why was Africa colonized? These guys didn't colonize it because they wanted to help us develop. No, they were coming here to grab from some very primitive natives who are on gold, but they are busy peeing on it. They don't know its value, and so on. So that's the confusion in Congo, and eventually that country will break up.
And just little information, Oscar. I think what
in a minute, yes.
I think the unfortunate bit for Congo is that it is surrounded by very weak people. That the leaderships, there's a government missing in Kinshasa, but also the governments around are all interested in just going in and stealing the resources, all the way from South Africa to us in the region. They are weak people.
Well, depending on how you define weakness.
They're weak. They don't have the metals. They're weak. They're workers.
Lydia, most welcome to Gang, Honorable Lydia Manyoto. You've quietly listened to these men with the histories and extrapolating and so on. Do you think all this, all the happenings in Eastern Congo make Uganda look really good?
Good morning to our listeners and colleagues in the gang.
But President Museveni looked very calm during the Nairobi conference, whereas other heads of states were really like quarreling and so on. President Museveni was very, very calm.
They allowed it.
He was very, very calm. He portrayed himself as the head of this.
He asked for permission. He was calm and collected. Given.
So you come.
Yeah.
So thank you, Oscar. Good morning to my colleagues at the gang and also to our listeners. The problem in Congo actually is bigger than the current leadership of the neighbors. I just wanted us to remember this. Even at independence, there were, if you've been following the history of our post-independent Africa, there were issues of gold scandals. You remember what happened even during the 1971 they were voted even just for Uganda.
Was a scandal.
Yeah, so I think that every neighboring government, even that like the one of Uganda that has stayed on with the leadership of Museveni, they found this challenge of Congo there, DRC Congo there. And we've had so many reports. If you go, people that have read the history of our country, go and read the late Professor Karujude's history. He's done did a lot of writing about history of Africa, but also zoomed into gold and the scandals of post-independence Africa, and even the neighbors. But I wanted to say that for me, I'm looking at the test on the table. The test on the table at the times of the leaders of Africa, the neighbors of Congo today, is the challenges that the regional mechanisms have failed. Because these people who came in power post-Africa independence or even the 1980s, they thought by putting in place regional mechanisms, they'll be able to help deal with the peace and stability of the region, but zeroing on to Congo. The reason why we have the international conference on the Great Lakes region, really it was about Congo. And it was headquartered in Bujumbura for the first time when it started, the secretariat to bring together. All the meetings were happening in Kenya because at that time, that was before 2007, at that time Kenya had posted the semblance of the most stable country in our time of then. Then in 2007 it broke loose when Kibaki was the chairman of the ICJR. He went to Addis, they tell him that Kenya is on fire. He said, no, there's no problem. So if you're dealing with conflict, it's very difficult because some of the triggers of the conflict are the ones who are supposed to be the gatekeepers of peace and stability in the region. So every regime or every time, there's that challenge. So people thought the times that by putting in place ESC, the South African community, by putting in place the ICGR, the Great Lakes International Council of Great Lakes region, by putting in place, revision of the African Union, you are in PAP. The Pan-African Parliament is a recent regional creature of the continent to be able to have parliamentarians of the African Union, of the continent, to be able to move legislation, to move debate that also checks issues of conflict. How far have you gone by stabilizing the conflict in the continent? PAP, Katuntu, you are a member of PAP. The African Union has recently had a revision. They have reorganized, and this was chaired by President Kagame. They thought that was the new kid of the block that has a big picture of peace and, a warrior in himself. But the structures are in place. The regional mechanisms are in place. We even have standby forces, the South Africa standby force. We even have the African Union architecture standby. All these big names and big. But with all that, we still have the big thorn or the big elephant in the room. DRC is not sorted. We still have conflict. We have conflict in South Sudan. We have conflict in Khartoum. We have conflict. The big one is the DRC, and the neighbors are jittery. What they are saying on the microphone does not speak to what is on the heart. You can tell from their face, and that anger is not for nothing. They are getting irritated because I think the cameras are zooming on them, and then the role of the international community. So Oscar, I think every period, every time, they have their contribution to the conflict of Africa. The center of conflict is DRC. DRC, like I said last time, the challenge is twofold. One, the Kinshasa. They don't have a strong government in Kinshasa. But secondly, they are also endowed with a lot of resources. And the neighbors look like, why can't we partake? And when you are partaking, then it becomes illegal. Then people are forming. There are so many warlords around us. Every small area has a warlord. They have their own army. And all these names you are all mentioning on the table here. You have now, because there are too many, even abbreviating them. Why do we have so many armies in Africa, so many guns, so many blades, so much fire? Why? It's because we lack governance that can manage to harness our resources and be able to compete even as a bloc, whether as ESC, whether as African Union, to the international face. Now we are running like a headless chicken. You're running here, you're running there, we are mentioning names. Look, Tshisekedi is here today, but he'll not be there tomorrow. We've had so many governments changing. But how come that even with the changes, we are not getting the question of DRC being answered? So sometimes it's not about who is at the head. It's bigger than that. So that's my take on this. And I'm happy if we can hear more conversations of joint SADC EAC summits. I think maybe the solution lies there, because these are the big boys in the region. If they can sit and agree, they are the ones who know where the procurement of ammunition is, the latest state-of-the-art bombs and all this. So if we can hear that SADC has had a summit with the EAC summit and they've agreed on minimum, not 100%, but a minimum. For so there is peace. It's very painful, Oscar, let me conclude, to seeing women and children. A woman is carrying a child on the back, a blanket and a mattress on the head, then a child breastfeeding, then there's another one in the stomach. And then some of them are shot in the camps. Some angry guys come and just raise them off like they are flies. There's a lot of wastage of life and lack of protection of civilians. But the big boys are now talking the tough. I can fight. I'm ready to fight. Fight, but you are killing your own people.
Yeah. Lydia, Roger in Kampala commends you for saying the name correctly, Tshisekedi, because last week we were miserable. I want to conclude the topic with Felix Kaiura Safari, but listeners are doing good. Richard in Bar, I should tell you, Yusuf has already sent me screenshots of Dan Gatla, born 23rd December 1973, estimated 1.5 billion his fortune by Forbes. So listeners can also check out Wikipedia and learn more about this person. He's an Israeli billionaire. So the misery, I beg your pardon?
That is 1 billion. He's not a billionaire.
I don't know what you mean by only. But
billionaires have too many billions.
You have 1.5 and you're a billionaire.
So the misery in
He's worth more than that.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's worth more than 1.5. His business, you can't.
He's worth more than 1.5.
You cannot disclose what you have.
Yeah.
We have IGAD.
You have to pretend that you don't know.
But to you, Felix, on the ground in Eastern DRC, it is the suffering people are going through. What will stop it?
Honestly, Oscar, like both Honorable Abdu and
or maybe should I ask, do you think M23 will form a government, offer social services, or
no? Honestly, to be honest, in my opinion, when actually beginning with the humanitarian crisis right now, they are incapable of managing what is you may refer to as a humanitarian crisis. And when you're talking about Eastern Congo, you're not talking about you are focusing purely on North Kivu and South Kivu. But I want you to remember that today, I think a friend of mine texted me yesterday, and he was they were welcoming the UPDF in Bunia, that is Ituri province, and everyone thinks the suffering is only in North Kivu. The Bahema have been massacred for the past 3 months. It's becoming so worse.
Who are those?
They are called not my mind. They are called the Bahamas are in Ituri, and in Ituri, by the way, they speak. These are Lutolo speaking people. The Bahamas, they speak Lutolos. They are cousins across the border. These guys in Ntoloko district. They are called the no, not Bamba. There is Batuku. They very good. So the Batuku is actually
Batuku. You have one in Parliament.
Exactly, and actually has been accused of but like Chinyarwanda speakers, Oscar, the other ones are Lutolo speaking or Lunyachitala speaking, and right now they are being massacred much more than the other ones.
Why?
By
by who and why? Yes.
One. There is state-inspired violence that local militias are either supported by the state or they act on their own against other tribal. So you have tribal clashes that sometimes are supported by foreigners, sometimes are supported by the own government. They fight. These are you need to appreciate. You need to appreciate that for them to survive. Or violence in Congo is in so many ways. For example, what is in Ituri is not in Chisangani. It's not in South Kivu or North Kivu. They are different. But what is clear right now?
But it is said that President Tshisekedi came to power having promised to remove Rwanda from Congo.
Interestingly, the chairman of the Electoral Commission, which was also claimed to have been flawed, is the current head of M23. That's the funniest bit of it.
But people
political head.
Friends can fight.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted people to appreciate that at least we are looking at majorly M23 as a crisis, or beyond the so-called who is where and who is supporting who. What is very important is that right now, the conflict in Congo is going to not only bring to light our own failed so-called integration. I'll give you an example. The major pusher, the major mover in ESC, where our headquarters are as East African Community, is Tanzania. Tanzania, they chased the East African Standby Force from Congo. Exactly, but Tanzania remained. Meanwhile, Tanzania is on the side of the Kinshasa government. Now, you are having SADC, which includes Tanzania, and yet Tanzania is also in East African Community. So I don't know if our regional blocks are actually going to remain the same way, because now you're talking about, today they have decided to have SADC ESC meeting, which is very good, but before that, where is Burundi standing? Where is Tanzania standing if they belong to both SADC and what? And the East Africa?
Yeah.
What is the problem? That can't be a problem.
Because now, SADC has been allowed to come to Congo by the government. The East African Community, where Congo itself belongs. No, but the East African Standby Force is not in Congo.
No,
it's not in Congo.
I think there is a problem with Mr. Kayihura. Yes. Because Uganda is part of the East African Community.
Yes.
But it was allowed by Kinshasa to be in Congo.
It is not in Congo as a regional bloc. It is in Congo as a country.
Does it matter?
No, listen, by the way, today, I'm even happy.
The sovereign powers remain with the host country.
For example, even the country itself you're talking about, Congo, belongs to both. Mm-hmm. So the issue here is, where is its loyalty? That's my point.
So there should be no conflict.
And today, the EPDF has also actually been hailed because it has stopped a few of those same clashes in Ituri. I don't know if also that's where also the ADF is, but what I know is that it's been hailed for that.
Thank you so much. Let's stop for a quick break, and then we'll continue discussion after the break. We'll come back from the break. This is the Capital Gang. We've had a discussion on Congo, East Congo, and then I'll allow Angela just a final conclusion on that one.
Not so much a conclusion, though I was talking to Yusuf here that if you follow the thread of his argument, really, and Abdu's about interests, where does all the minerals get traded?
In the international market.
Gold, for example, last week had hit the highest ever price, right? So a lot of the pressure you're seeing there in DRC, like Abdu says, is competing interests, but actually the markets for gold, coltan, and it is basically a scramble for resources. Yeah. And I thought the pressure on Rwanda, if I could make this final argument and go to what Adonia Ibare, who is in Tanzania, is saying, is that the pressure on Rwanda and others is that Rwanda is the only government that has got real, if you like, nativist interests. I think even a lot of the resources that anyone says is going through Rwanda is repurposed for the security of the state, and the reason for that is quite obvious. So I think the other players only benefit from this unregulated access to Congo's minerals, and they do not want a strong actor with more native interests there. But that said, I texted Ambassador Adonia, who is in Dar es Salaam for the summit. I said we're on the gang here, and asked him what expectations that he has. He says they're soon starting, and they want a cessation of hostilities as a deal at the beginning. But you can see, Oscar, it means that the big picture issues we are discussing here will be pushed aside. Yes.
And stop the conflict.
Yeah, but you see, by the time the summit meets, it has gone on. You know, because the ministers, these Adonias, should have discussed and agreed positions, and these guys are going to meet for 2-3 hours, really to come up with something which has already been worked upon.
Hopefully.
Honorable
Katuntu, once again, we have 3 lawyers in the studio. Let's start
What
with
is it
the
again?
senior counsel, Abdul Katuntu. So after a big discussion here on the decision of, when I say Supreme Court, people say Constitutional Court. When I say Constitutional Court, others say Supreme Court. So now I'm learning to say Supreme stroke Constitutional Court. Yes, so that they don't say anything. Then President Museveni responded very quickly, castigating that decision. What's your opinion on that? Or should I say, what are his issues and what's your opinion on them?
First of all, it is everybody's right, whether it's me, whether President Museveni, to
Have an opinion.
have an opinion in a judgment. So you cannot fault President
the way
Museveni.
President Trump has opinions on
Yes,
judgment
you can't.
and uses
You
stronger
can't
words.
fault him because he's quarreling about that judgment. You can't, because we do that every day. We get excited and we are happy. We congratulate the court. Others will get angry with the decision. What is important, however, is for the president to respect the decision, or for anybody. You may disagree with it. It is legitimate to disagree with it, but you have to respect the decision. That's the most important thing, and that is the only requirement. So anybody quarreling with the judgment, yes, you can quarrel with it. You can be happy with it, congratulate it. I saw the president of Uganda Law Society bathing
CP water.
CP water and in the shower is a poi whatever is saying, congratulating the Chief Justice and so on. That is okay. But now that it is there, what will the president or government do? Because that decision, that judgment made the number of proposals afforded the executive and parliament on a few issues which have to be sorted out. One, if I read and I think I appreciate the Honorable Chief Justice's judgment, was like, if you want to have this as a court, you need to have a legal requirement for qualification. For example, members of the General Court Martial, because they are going to interpret the law and take decisions, they should certainly be learned in the interpretation of the law. And that is very, very significant in my view, and that the executive and parliament must address. UPDF cannot say, well, we can't do this, because UPDF has accounts, doesn't it have? Do they employ professional accountants to do the job? I think they do not so. UPDF has engineering or civil engineering tasks. Do they employ engineers to do the job? Yes, they do. So if you have a legal challenge or a legal obligation to do it, why don't you recruit people, train them, and then they handle those legal tasks within the army? So these are really, really legitimate interests, and to me, they are so logical, very, very logical, and the reforms are absolutely necessary. But there's one thing which the judgment seemed to have been silent as I read it. You see, a court martial should be adjudicating what we call martial law. But now it is adjudicating penal code, civilian law, we call it, and so on. So what is unique about this, that you need this sort of court? What is unique about? Is it that the soldiers now interpret this law better than the civilian court? Because you see, the world all over, you can declare an area emergency and declare martial law. And then if you say martial law, then the marshals take it up. And then that will be a legitimate court martial because it is under martial law. And the circumstances are such that the situation has to be governed, not normally. So that's why you have an emergency or a martial law, and there are laws in place that provides for circumstances under which such a situation can happen. And what you can't say you are having two standards of adjudication of cases. If it's the penal code, it's the penal code. So you can't say the court martial will decide this different from the ordinary court. When you are trying to interpret the same law, it becomes very different, especially if you have all of them are under one constitution. So President Museveni and the executive and Attorney General, of course, should be thinking about what are the necessary reforms which they should bring to Parliament and we enact. Unfortunately, there is a lot of quarreling, more than trying to appreciate a judgment and say, okay, now that they have decided this way, what do we do? Because all of us should respect what we call constitutionalism. And the Constitution governs us, whoever you are. It doesn't matter whether you have red collar or you have no sleeves. We are under one Constitution. So the quarrel, people should be, well, they may not be happy with it, but that is the constitutional situation we have in, and let us adhere to the decision of the court and do the necessary reforms. The quarreling should stop. There's no need for quarreling anymore. This thing of this is unacceptable. I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to overturn the constitution, or are you going to overturn the decision of the court?
And it is a delayed judgment in any case. Lydia, another lawyer in the studio, I guess you gave it some attention at caucus yesterday.
Yes, the caucus yesterday in Entebbe discussed on the issue of the ruling.
I hope they had read it.
If we have not read, we have to open.
And I said I hope they had read it. I was being sincere.
Oscar, the role of Parliament, like colleagues have said, is to legislate or pass laws, and in this case, zooming into the ruling, there are areas that require legal attention for the Parliament to address, and also the executive. Fortunately, or unfortunately, already the UPDF Act has been before Parliament and the executive for amendment, for other amendment issues, or realigning it to the current needs of the UPDF. So what happened yesterday, given the recent ruling, one of the resolutions was to withdraw the UPDF amendment bill from Parliament. The last time I had actually heard was at the first Parliamentary Council, but I think it had now moved to Parliament.
No, it was already with us.
So we have resolved as caucus, so that cabinet, the relevant structures of government, withdraw that amendment bill. The intention is to now incorporate, because the court martial is provided for in that act, and the questions and the challenges about the court martial are within that act. So we have passed a resolution as caucus to withdraw the bill, so that the Attorney General or the chambers that is relevant to this can now make the necessary amendments aligned to the requirements of the ruling, so that then now it can go to Parliament when we have already incorporated the areas that require amendment. That's one. The second one, we also listened to the issues that were raised in the ruling, and some of the conversations around some of the following issues is to be able to differentiate what we call service offences. Service offences are those offences or crimes that are committed by serving officers in the line of duty. So those ones, we need to list them and be able to explain them, so that they are distinct and known, away from other offences, like my colleagues have said, that are provided for under the penal code of the laws of our country. And what we also discussed was to say that the court martial or any courts or subordinate courts in Uganda should be aligned to the provisions of the Constitution to reflect the tenets of a fair hearing, which are clearly provided for in our Constitution, and that it's not only it should be seen but also be officially listed that this is what tenets of a fair hearing should constitute, and be able to reflect in all courts of law in our country. And to also clearly show that the military court, as amended, should be a subordinate court, the civilian court, to provide for an appellant opportunities for those who are not satisfied, so that it is aligned to the appellant structures of the courts of Uganda. So that was also we were able to discuss. So then on the membership of the court, because the moment you say it is a court, it should also be aligned to what constitutes a court in the Constitution of Uganda or in the laws of Uganda. Therefore, we in the amendments, they will what is in the UPDF Act is that to be in the court martial or president of the court martial just have to be at the rank of lieutenant colonel.
Yeah.
We are going to improve on that so that it is also aligned to what the Constitution or the law provides for the standard or the competence of somebody that leads the court, qualifications, so competencies. That's what I want to say. And that will be drawn from what is provided for under the Judicial Service Commission, so that there's also that advice and relationship to set standards. So that's also going to be part of the area of conversation, so that the UPDF has serving officers who are lawyers, but that is not enough. They will have to be subjected to the standard of having capacity and qualifications to be able to hold a court. Then another issue is court martial. I'm talking about court martial. Yes. In line with a fair hearing, whether it is a serving office or not, and we will be able to also differentiate between any other offense but also service offenses, so that those things are clear. And to be able to also distinguish between disciplinary measures in any service, like, because we also have disciplinary measures in all institutions of government in Uganda. Parliament has a committee that handles the issues of rules and privileges. So even for them, they should be able to differentiate between disciplinary action of the serving officers as opposed to crimes, offenses of crime, or service offenses that would subject you to the rigors of a court setting. So those ones, we say that they should be able to be explained and make that difference very clear. Because disciplinary, you can be punished, you can be dismissed. That should be another structure. You can be demoted, or even there's what they call put on kateve, for disciplinary action. But that should be also distinct and listed as disciplinary structure of the issue. No, you cannot mix the two. It can be problematic. But the elephant in the room, which even took us up to what we are discussing now, is the issue of civilians
in that court.
Of civilians that either abet or support or work with service men or women to commit crimes that are related to the military, whether you are armed. That one is the elephant in the room. How do you deal with civilians who are abetting crimes that are related to servicemen or services in the realm of the service? That debate has to not be pushed under the carpet. And that's why we were discussing, for us in the caucus, we said, actually, I'm one of those that debate. This matter should not have winners and losers. People are just stamping this one as one. We are running a country when there's a problem, nobody wins, nobody loses. We all lose or we should all win. So there should be a debate on how the civilian courts, if it is civilian courts, are going to deal with civilians that commit heinous crimes, even when they are provided for in the penal code, but in the manner that also gives fairness to the victims. And last week I talked about it. If you are going to have this management of cases that take years, people don't feel that it just has been served. Once it is delayed, it has been denied. So they also have work to do on that one. But the beauty of it going forward is that now people are sitting now in meetings. There will be meetings with the judiciary. Finally, they will end up in Parliament, the Ministry of Defense or the UPDF with the Attorney General's chambers. There must be meeting because we are serving Uganda. We do not want to hear about losers or winners. We want to have a winning country and everybody doing their work. The elephant in the room are those crimes being handled by civilians but using ammunition or using lethal weapons that are a preserve of the servicemen. That must be sorted.
Yeah.
You've heard about the pangas, you have heard about murders.
Thank you, Lydia.
Expeditiously, we want
Yusuf,
a fair hearing.
On my microphone. In addition to your comments, you should also respond to Lydia on whether I should call it normal courts cannot handle such cases.
No, they can handle such cases. They should.
I didn't want you to answer.
But the issue is
because of time.
Our history has not shown that they give it the attention that is due, and people suffer.
There's
and the crime grows.
There's case in court right now. The name has escaped me. The wife who's accused of having killed her husband with the help. Katanga. That's a case in court. It's not in court martial.
Before you go for the microphone, I really want to put in a case for the civilian courts here. One of the most heinous crimes ever committed in this country was the bombing during the World Cup finals in which year was that?
2010.
Yeah. There was a proper trial presided over by Judge Owinyi Doroden as a High Court judge. Within a reasonable time, there were convictions, and how many people died in that one?
70-something.
Over 70-something. As of now, I've never had a public complaint about that prosecution and the way they conducted it. It's not that really there is a virtue. No. Of course, yes, there could be some weaknesses here which can be addressed, but it's not that the civilian courts are not competent or they are so much clogged that they cannot address it.
Oscar,
that is the conversation at the table, and I've said here there are no losers or winners. There are people that have complaints of overlaid cases of that nature.
Oscar, I want to say that the Museveni's military court martial is a remnant of his son. And his son is a remnant of his
when Ssemujju says and his son, he has posted I can't even read it on air. Posted your picture on X.
This is a remnant, and Museveni kept it on the side as a constant reminder to everybody in this space that we are governed by the military. It's just one of those things that you need to return on the side, to often throw in people's faces that, hey, by the way, I can take you here. Yeah. That's the only function it serves. And it's not a legal question. We're clear-cut in the space of politics. This man has to constantly remind Ugandans that I am a soldier. Remember when there was there were daddy landslides, and the man showed up with a rifle? It's a landslide. You remember that story? So a constant reminder that
to be short.
Yes. A constant reminder to the country that we run a military government, and if you mess with us, we have a thing we kept on the side. We will try you. And this is what he's doing. But I write in the Observer this week that this wasn't a judgment for Museveni and his son. They can say whatever they want. This is a judgment for this country. It's a judgment for Uganda and a soon-to-be former president, Yoweri Museveni. Right, so the judges, the justices of the Supreme Court, even when they know this man appointed them and they and controls them to a degree, they said we need to put something on the books for the future of this country. And this is at that point where this country is trying to reconstruct itself. You know, Oscar, nowadays I'm on a mission of pleading with Yoweri Museveni to give Uganda a chance when he still can. Because at 87, when all your contemporaries are gone, chances are high that you don't have so much time left. So I'm on a mission pleading with him. But officially, as you said, but unofficially, he's more than that.
He could be less.
He doesn't know when he was born.
He doesn't know. I think he's much more. But anyway, I think you're draining from the point I'm making. I am pleading with Yoweri Museveni that give Uganda a chance when you still can. And what the judges did for us is to start the process of giving Uganda a chance to return to absolute constitutional law. Right? So it is in that context they give us a judgment for posterity, for their own posterity, as men who held this bench for some time, but also men and women, but also trying to reconstruct Uganda, revive the thing called Uganda. And you know, one of the things that I don't know how to say, you know how they say in Uganda and Chibatuddemu, Kuruno Chibatuddemu, because you see, Museveni loves the facade that he's a Democrat, governs by constitution, a law-abiding leader. That's the thing he loves, and he chased it for a very long time. But what happened this time is that a section of those institutions of government which are conscripted, from parliament to the police force to prisons, what has happened is that one of the arms of government, which is a key arm, said we need to do something different. I think they would have found arguments somehow for continuity of the court-martial. They would have found arguments somehow. Just like they found arguments for the delay in giving us the ruling, 4 years, maybe much more. But this time they said, no, let's be fair and give this to the country. Now what has happened is that all those people don't know what to do. From the CDF to Yoweri Museveni to the Attorney General to Uganda Police Force to prisons. Because you see, the Attorney General said he needs more time to read the judgment. I don't know what he's reading. Now, and one of the men I pity most is Chiwa Chonka, because this is a judgment given by his friends. The judges, these are his friends. He hangs out with them. Or even he contributes to their appointment. Now, and this is the Supreme Court. There's no other place to go. Now Chiwachunuka doesn't know what to do.
Unfair to
Chiwachunuka doesn't know where
you have a judgment like that. You have to study
because
and
he
see the implications. Because
he has.
There's somewhere else they can go. They are going to go to the caucus.
Just explain what is
Oscar,
happening.
you need to protect me.
You are protected.
No, we also need to protect somebody who is not here.
We also need to give
I agree with you.
and protect him.
I agree with
Now
you.
he's
not here. We have to protect him also.
To you-
Honorable
use-
Ssemujju, I invited the AG Chiriwa Chonoka, and he will come to Ghana.
To use Lydia Onyeto's favorite term, Chiwachunuka is running around like a headless chicken. He doesn't know what to do. So, I think the challenge for him is how do you constitutionally or democratically disrespect this judgment?
As Abdul dissents, Ssemujju is saying, I agree with you.
Now he's in a pickle.
That's not
the
true.
right things.
Chiwachunuka is in a pickle. How do you constitutionally and democratically disrespect this judgment? You see, they all understand that
You are
Museveni-
putting bad face. It's not fair.
They all agree that
But
Museveni
Oscar,
But
we
also
should
acting
respect
in bad
our
faith.
listeners.
You wanted the
I have just
military to continue
given
trying
over
civilians.
5 minutes to explain
And
what is
I think you
happening.
finished your part.
And the briefing we did not, but now you are undoing. So why did we come to
What
this
am I
show?
supposed to
So do you come here to confirm what
No,
you are
we are
saying?
giving
Lydia?
information.
And we
Then you
disagree with you.
You
So
keep
you are
information.
disagreeing that the Attorney General has put up teams to discuss
Oscar,
and to give you answers.
No, we are
Are you
saying
disagreeing with that?
But we are saying the
You are
same
now
thing.
trying
You are
to
you
demean
are
him
agreeing,
when I've actually
you are
told
agreeing
you
that
what's
he's
happening.
running around, and that's what he's
No, that's
saying.
not what I said. No.
Yes.
The running around was what's happening in Congo. Don't mix debates. I think you
I
can
said I
correct
used
that.
your favorite phrase.
You
I
can
just
tell
used your
Ssemujju.
favorite phrase. Running like
Where did I use
like
it?
headless chicken. You used it like
It's in context.
okay.
it's in context.
Oscar.
On
The
that
point.
note,
The
yes.
point I'm trying to make is this.
One more.
The point I'm trying to make is this.
No, but you should not abuse it.
That Yoweri
forum like this one. We
Museveni
shouldn't.
loves the facade,
Last sentence.
loves the idea that is a democratically bound leader. He respects the constitution. Now,
Okay.
the men who work for him also love that facade. But now they are put in a position where they have to respect The Constitution.
We'll go with your books around it. Let's stop for a break,
struggling to do it
and then
the
we'll
right
have
way.
Ssemujju and Angela and Felix. Welcome back from the break. This is the Capital Gang. We're getting to the end of it. Richard again in Barra says he's following the gang on X Spaces. That's Twitter Spaces, so you can follow that as well if you don't have your radio to hand. Edgar Tabar on X, formerly Twitter, says East African leaders are gathering in Dar es Salaam to do the things the same way for the last 3 decades, expecting different results. That's him. So, Honorable Ssemujju, on I'm trying to think, where were we?
Me, I know.
Where were we?
You see, Oscar,
So the president contested, and Abdul says everyone has an opinion. Can I have
in
an
the last
opinion
election,
yes.
when we were processing electoral-related laws, the Electoral Commission had issued the roadmap. The Secretary General then of NRM came before Parliament. All the actors were uncomfortable. And for her, she was happy. So I asked her, doesn't it bother you that you are the only one who is happy with what the Electoral Commission is doing? Government is very big. Even the court martial itself, Anna Mugabe, exists. But you have only the father and the son. They are the only ones who are complaining. Why doesn't that bother them? That General Museveni and his son, General Moses Kainerugaba, they are the ones, only 2. I have not heard any minister. I have not heard, including Mugabe, the chairman of General Court Martial, they are all not complaining. But only the father and the son. So, why are they the only ones complaining?
Let's Lydia give you information. 1 minute.
Ibra, by virtue of the offices they hold, if there is a matter in Ichira municipality,
yes,
people will start asking, why is it Ssemujju asking? Because you are the area MP.
You should have had
is the president
you
of
should
Uganda.
have had a press conference
And
by the
Moses is
minister,
the
CDF.
by the Minister of Defense, because he supervises Museveni's son.
But the supervisor
They are all
of the
quiet.
court
He's
martial
a
is
lawyer.
the CDF.
The Minister of Justice, the Attorney General.
But
So only the
Ssemujju
father and the son, Lydia, if you can
led by
allow
the
me,
president.
only the son, the father and the son, they are the ones who are complaining because they think they own this country. They are personally affected.
You know when,
Officers they hold.
you know when that Josephine Barra was
they-
saying, Ssemujju has spoken without saying the word Museveni. It was a bit too early.
Oscar, the first question you asked Katund was that Museveni has responded. So you want me to discuss Kagame? Are you not the one who said that Museveni has responded? And I'm now debating him. You're saying now he's talking about
the president of
Museveni.
Uganda.
Okay, Kagame.
The president of
That was the moderator said. That Museveni has responded.
So-
Abdu, what is your opinion
And
on
Moses
Museveni's
is the
opinion?
CDF.
So Ssemujju,
So-
he has his opinion is dissenting, but Lydia has given an update saying, okay, they've in the caucus it was accepted, and they are putting structures around.
And I'm coming
address
to that, but I wanted to give context. Why the anger? The anger is that General Museveni and his son, General Moses Kainerugaba, the only person who has been quiet is General Salim Saleh, one whom has 3 generals in the military controlling the country. He hasn't joined them in complaining. That in itself is a problem. Even the way you constitute the military, that you one family, this is your military. Either people are running to Saleh or running to Muhoozi or running to the father. Now coming to the specific issues, as I consumed the judgment myself, the judge has said you cannot have a court, or that court cannot be, they cannot give guarantee fair hearing once it derives its decision and is supervised by the high command. That I read in the judgment. So Abdu and other lawyers can help me. So even if you try to re-establish the same court, which it will not be constitutionally okay, and then you get the high command, as the son said, he will sit in the high command, not even this caucus of Lydia or cabinet, but they will sit in the high command, and already they have instructed, and that's why Isfu was right. As they go to sit in the high command, he also hinted that we have instructed the Minister of Defense and Attorney General to begin running around the Kedres chicken. So these ones are supposed to translate their anger into a bill before a parliament. That's the only work they have. You, all of you NRM people who have come here, I am angry. My son is also angry. Can you translate our anger into a bill and then you send it to parliament? That's what where we are headed. And then Oscar.
Yeah.
Again, the Supreme Court said, if they would want to maintain, because what the Supreme Court did was to declare unconstitutional the sections of the APDF Act that set up the court-martial. So those sections are no longer in the law. The court-martial is not there, even for their own disciplinary issues. But court said, if you are interested in re-establishing it, it must be a disciplinary committee whose sentencing must not go beyond dismissing people in the military or cautioning them. But also, if you are re-establishing it, that court-martial, so if you want a court, because now it must be a disciplinary committee whose offenses are already almost determined by a court. If you want to go beyond that, you may request the establishment of a division at the High Court to try military people, like you have the International Crimes Division. So you will no longer have, and that's how I understand, my understanding of the judgment was that it's no longer possible to recreate a court-martial. The parameters is that we appear as MPs, we appear before Judge Abdul Katuntu, who is the head of our disciplinary unit in the parliament. But Abdul cannot begin trying other people because they have abused the parliament, and then Abdul summons them to come to parliament and he subjects them to disciplinary hearing, and then he sends them to Luzira.
This is Serukum, I'm going somewhere.
So that's what the court said, that because what they should be doing now is to get parliament to enact a law that allows them to re-establish disciplinary units from wherever they exist, only to deal with discipline, either demote, remove a rank, dismiss. So if they attempt to go, and that's why I agree with the Fox Odoy, I hope he will hold his position.
Yeah.
He said, there is nothing to amend. Everything was made very clear. The only option they have is to overthrow the constitution and
or to train soldiers to be.
No, even if they train them, as long as they are soldiers, because they even said if you want to have a normal court where judges are put there by the Judicial Service Commission, because you cannot
you can't have someone who's looking for promotion.
Yes, and appointed by high command to be a judge. So it is no longer possible constitutionally to re-establish the court-martial.
Let's go to Angelo.
I don't think that is the legal position, because any country can establish any courts of its choosing if it's legislated. And it looks like the process is underway now, from what Honorable Lydia has said, to look at the issues generated by the court, subject it to the scrutiny of the Right Honorable Attorney General and his team, and then bring it via the formal process of the in Parliament, and then we should get a new law that properly situates the General Court Martial within the system of courts, and then I think we shall accept this jurisprudence. And when we go on, my understanding, Oscar, because I have read jurisprudence from court martials. I think in law school, much of that came from Nigeria when it was under military rule. But I guess even when you look at the period when Uganda was under a military government under General Amin, the courts were operational and there was jurisprudence there, because the judges at the time were not civilian judges in the real meaning of it, because you had a military government in charge. But I wanted to say that the issue here is political and historical in nature, and I want to disagree with Yusuf and Ssemujju. I recently started writing an article about what is the Ugandan project about, Because, countries will say, like Trump now says, let's make America great again. There must be some direction of travel, a national project that we can all...
There's some European countries meeting this weekend to make Europe great again.
Yes, so these countries are starting to define the historical moment, will say, okay, this is the direction we're going. And in Uganda, if you look at the political conversation, the cultural conversation, there doesn't seem to be that one project that Uganda is about. However, what Ugandans all agree, and I think they are all bounded by his history on this matter, is how can we have, maybe in our generation, a peaceful transfer of power, something we have never had. Now, in the context of what's going on, in civilian military relations, I thought that the court judgment was important because it hinted in some ways about whether or not the military can be subordinated to civilian authority. Because that's one of the issues of, peaceful handover of power, right? And to the extent of the behavior of the establishment right now, the military itself, and the NRM as a political party, they're moving in the direction of subordinating those courts in a proper manner to civilian authority. That's a good thing. Now, let me address the issue that Ssemujju raised about the comments of the president and the head of the army. During Tarahisita, the General Kainerugaba said something about the historical mission of the UPDF/NRM. You can decide, like Ssemujju, to ignore it and pretend that the military is not commingled with the civilian government, but that would be a fallacy. Our reality is that they no, because you're saying that no. I think it's properly commingled. The military is in parliament, and there's a dichotomy there, which is about this historical path we're on. Should we have a peaceful transfer of power? Now, it would be wrong, and I think even dangerous, to ignore the place of the military today in the structures of our government, and if you take those structures away, in our society. That is just who we are. And the reason why the General Court Martial has such a big place in our society is because of that history. Like, I witnessed a field court martial execute 3 soldiers in Moyo when I was perhaps like 11 years old. And that was the time of general lawlessness and crisis. There are parts of the country today where field court martials are the only way to signal to people who are armed or committing violent crimes that there is law and order. Here in Kampala, when we had a spate of robberies and killings, and I think it's 2002, okay, when the military moved in to clean that, there was a sigh of relief, because that actually provides a sense. Yes. In fact, a lot of lawyers I spoke to. Now I want to defend this. Let me defend this. Let me defend this, because I think you can't ignore that you are living in a country, okay, that historically has been in violent competition. And the sense of order we enjoy today is the result of that violence being commanded by the simple fact that the military is behaving the way it is. You see, I can sit here and say we want civilian order, but you cannot ignore the historical truth that our sense of so-called peace, okay.
So they should subject. They only have your microphone.
No.
Complete.
But you see.
Yes.
But
don't
you see.
His line of thinking.
I am just offering you
an opinion.
I'm just saying to you.
Honorable Ssemujju, because you are not on microphone,
but Ssemujju,
you are killing his.
I'm only saying that respect the context and the history in which we operate. Okay. Okay, that is just the reality.
Your microphones are not on.
No, his microphone is on.
He's not on now.
So the law is a creature of culture and politics and power.
Okay.
And that's my conclusion.
We're kind of running out, but I want to catch you on that one. Okay. Hold on. I mean, he has responded to you and Ssemujju particularly. But Angelo, if I put to you that you're commingling things, so to speak, because an army can be called upon at any time, and many countries call upon the army to intervene in an area. So it can really happen under good governance.
I think you can clarify.
For it.
I think the idea that you can clarify the circumstances in which a civilian with
go on.
A civilian, okay, who is armed, commits an offense which is deemed to be military in nature, can find themselves under the jurisdiction of a military court. I don't think that is an idea that you can just throw away. Okay? And I think that because of our history and context, it's worth considering, not simply dismissing.
Okay. So, to another lawyer in the studio, Felix Kaihura Safari. We have David Businge Kabagambe on X, formerly Twitter, says, why is it that a rebel leader, Mukuru, isn't before the court-martial? I need help. So, the main topic was the president's response. And is it true that these courts cannot manage instances like what Angela is talking about?
I think, Oscar, we failed to tackle the actual thing, which was the result of how we got into where we got by the Supreme Court. This was a constitutional appeal from the Court of Appeal, the Constitutional Appeal, the Constitutional Court, and Kavazguga and others were dissatisfied by the fact that we continue, or the country continues to try civilians in court-martial. And it goes well in term with what you're saying. I must say, this is one of the best jurisprudences that for posterity we shall enjoy as a nation. Like someone is asking, why isn't Mukuru in the court-martial? Just like Honorable Katuntu actually earlier on stated that we have had these... we have had the 2020 bombings, 2010 bombings prosecuted very well and successfully, by the way, and we didn't have to go to the court-martial. And then we are mixing up this with the what service leaders are looking at in their own kind of court-martial they would wish or they should have. One thing for sure is that our laws, including the penal code, prosecution is very key in whatever court you go to. Even when you appear at night armed with anything and you're just a mere robber, they call that they at least make it capital. It is no longer simple robbery. You don't even have to carry any gun or anything, but for as long as you appear at a particular time with anything that is deemed very dangerous, for example, that is to say a knife, you will be tried of what? Aggravated robbery, meaning it will be a capital offense. And what you all forget, how do we come up with people accepting court-martial or wanting court-martial? It goes back to what you have always discussed, Honorable Ssemujju, bail. People think going to our civilian normal courts, you easily get bail, and therefore it will not serve as a deterrent to others because of easily getting bail, unlike the court-martial. I hope we all agree on that. But I want to tell you that there is no way you can wake up and assume that because someone has been found with a gun, he should be taken to court-martial. The country has had series of prosecutions in civilian courts of armed robbers with guns. It has no difference. By the way, a rebel has no... The difference between a rebel and a soldier is that a soldier is licensed to carry a gun. Exactly. Therefore, it's all about handling. They are all armed. Do we agree? And if they are all armed, our courts, they are trained to handle that. And what Justice Monica Mugenya, I think, attempted to say was that she even went ahead to talk about a serving military officer who has raped someone. For example, you're staying in Chanja and probably a soldier rapes someone. Justice Monica was of the view that actually that person shouldn't even be taken to court martial. That soldier should be taken to the normal courts, because this is this is an offense that even civilians can commit. So therefore you should just take them to civilian courts. But now, going back to what everyone is interested in about the court martial, the court martial, in its own way, like Honorable Katuntu is saying, there is a lot that needs to be amended, Honorable Ssemujju. Let me give you an example. Are you aware, the UPDF Act, have you read the UPDF Act? Do you find it okay that the constitution of the High Command and the constitution of the council actually has names written in permanently?
That is not changing.
Do you find that funny?
But it's not changing.
No, is that hold on, Dr. Serunkuma, probably maybe Dr. Serunkuma, you a scholar.
Continue,
I
Felix.
teach law. I know, and I will tell you constitutionally, you cannot have a piece of law that is written to govern a nation, and above all, officers who are not born who aspire to join the UPDF, and one day they will find Mujisha Muntu as a permanent member of the Army Council. They will find Dr. Besije is a permanent member. He was a senior officer as well. So, if others, including those that probably, we are talking about these ones because they are popular. There are others who are not very popular, probably somewhere.
So what are you saying, Felix?
That needs to be amended. So when Honorable...
When?
No. When
Yusuf, don't disrupt
because right now Honorable Lydia was talking about the UPDF amendment bill in Parliament that needs to be withdrawn. In my opinion, incorporating the Supreme Court's recommendations, and if I had an opportunity, I would also suggest the same. So an amendment to the UPDF Act is something that we shouldn't debate about honestly. It should happen. And the constitution of the court martial, as per now, you must appreciate that it has field court martial, it has division court martial, unity. Actually, it begins with the unit disciplinary committees, UDCs. Now, those ones, everyone seems to be happy with UDCs because they are purely dealing with only serving combatants, not so?
Military.
But where everyone has an issue is where you are putting in civilians in the court martial.
As Lydia pointed out.
For me, that's where I have a problem.
Thank you, Felix.
Thank you.
So we are concluding the show. I'll finish. We had a lot more topics for discussion, but we'll finish. Lydia, let me give you another minute, and then I'll ask Abdul Katuntu to close out. Then we can have a good shouting match at the end of the show.
The spirit where I stand is that we should never, at our level, be thinking of losers and winners in matters like this one. We should be always trying to find ways of finding solutions so that the country moves on and the country wins. Because we are all looking at DRC and we're asking ourselves, what is wrong with DRC? It's very easy to end up, when you want to look for losers and winners, it's very easy to end up with turbulence, and yet we want to move on as a country with peace and stability. That's why for me, I think that yes, we have a court ruling on the table. We should all take up what is due to whoever the actors are, and you do it right and make a contribution. I was just able to take an advantage of sharing what we discussed in the caucus. We want the UPDF bill withdrawn from Parliament. Whatever is meant for amendment is done, or inclusion, but also clarification of certain things, like we said in the caucus. What constitutes a service offense? It is listed. What constitutes the monopoly of the UPDF? If they say the ammunition that is a monopoly. So we also list what is a monopoly of the UPDF. That's very important for Uganda. I don't know whether you're getting me. Because there are those words that have been...
Let me speak to them. Speak for them.
What's the monopoly of
just,
the UPDF?
I'm giving an extra minute.
Monopoly.
I'm giving let me speak for them. You spoke as NRM caucus, so they are also correct in opposing what you spoke about.
I'm
so
not saying
you cannot dismiss it.
You asked me to give my view.
I've just
and
clarified.
I'm not saying they should not oppose. I'm only be emphasizing my position.
Right.
That we should always be winners and work for everybody to win, because we all have a contribution to make.
Okay.
So I don't know what you're correcting now.
That accept their opposition to you.
I'm not refused, but I'm also emphasizing what I stand for.
Okay.
That does not mean I don't explain what I stand for. What I think that.
So Abdul,
that's your space.
That's your
space. I also have my space, and I'm not going to allow anybody to enter my space because I believe in it. Have yours, but we should have a win-win at the end of the day.
You're asking for too much. Win-win.
So
win-win with Serum Kuma.
Yeah. So
it may not happen.
I'm just
Lydia, no.
To you
No.
in the most panel.
Lydia, last sentence.
No, on the issue of I think we are in agreement that people can express their displeasure on any ruling, not the one of the Supreme Court recently, but that does not mean that you do not respect the decision of court, because we cannot run a lawless country. Somebody must put you to order.
We are talking about Congo.
So that's
Abdul, we final word on the capital gang.
Oscar, doing things in a bad face will always catch up with you eventually.
By the way, there's a comment here. Two of them says, imagine the irony, Bobby Wine in the court martial, but Mukuru isn't. Very funny and problematic. Then there's Levi Yaro as usual. How come we didn't have such conversations during President Idi Amin? I know that Levi Yaro wasn't even born at that time. And then also James Wabbs responds very quickly. We forget easily. They usually respond like that, both of them.
Well, maybe we need to tell Levi that there was that conversation, but there were no FMs.
Well,
there was no Twitter, there was no X, there was
radio cut.
There was even there was not even a phone. Anyway, let's say this. This conversation came about because, one, whereas the professed reasons of taking people to court martial is that they have connived with the serving officers to commit an offense. That's the professed one. But has it been the reality or not? And if, for example, it is true that the people who were going to court martial were actually those who had been caught committing crime with UPDF officers or serving officers, would we have this uproar or not? Because you see, we are moving away from the real conversation. And then we go to an academic discussion. The issue is, take for example these National Unity Platform people with the who were picked during the campaigns and so on. Then they went to the court martial. They stayed there for 4 years without evidence, and eventually people are saying, "Is that the purpose of the court martial?" Because that's the reality. So this whole thing, I must say, has been brought about by the court martial itself. They went away from what they were supposed to do, and they did a different thing. And now we are thrown... The whole thing has been, throwing us into some useless conversation. Why?
Okay.
Officers should realize, and this happened when we're enacting me and Segona, really, when we're having a private conversation, we feel guilty, this Public Order Management Act. Because we all agreed that we needed to regulate public gathering and so on, and we enacted the law in good faith. Somebody started using that provision enacted in good faith to do things which are not allowed. To say, no, you've not sought permission, and you are saying no.
Nowhere.
It is not anywhere. So
I have to thank you, Abdul.
The problem, as you thank me,
It's
is
midday.
the general court martial should pick its lessons. That even where you have some legitimate concern, like Angelo was saying, it has been vulgarized by what they are doing.
Thank you.
And they
Gangsters
brought
of
all
the day.
this to the country.
Honorable Katuntu, Honorable Anyoto, Honorable Ssemujju. Thank you. Dr. Serunkuma. Thank you. Felix Kaihura Safari. Thank you, Angelo Izama. The listeners of Capital Gang, thank you so much. Star Cafe for powering the gang. Thank you so much. I am Oscar Semoyamsoke, and I shall see you next week.